Oh, guess what? It's Rings of Power once again. It's so funny because we do these so back to back that I have to give like a little pause and act like there's, this isn't the same podcast. Well, because these get chopped up. But hey, guess what, everybody? It's Rings of Power. Rings of Power once again.
It's surprising.
We are back for the Ross's favorite show.
How could it not
feel to be obligated?
Our favorite show.
Yeah? How's it feel to be obligated to watch a show that you just revile?
It's funny because we started kind of doing that with Fallout, right?
Yeah.
And even though it was very flawed, it was at least it was pretty enjoyable to watch. It was unique and distinct, and it was something different. Yeah, I enjoyed it. Thank God for Walton Goggins, huh?
Oh yeah.
And honestly, even I forget the actress's name now. Sorry, ma'am, if you just happen to be listening to this. But the gal that played Lucy was I thought she was just fine too.
She played the wide-eyed gal who isn't prepared for the horrors of the universe and that sort of thing very well. I thought there are flaws in how they approached the writing of her character, where she was wide-eyed and then made good decisions and then made stupid decisions and never learned a lesson. It was just really silly.
Yep. But then we got to this, and it's so funny. The way I remember it, and this probably has to do with having overnight brain, where I work overnights, and so my memory is just terrible.
Right.
But I just remember one week when all right, well, everyone get started on watching Rings of Power, because we're going to start talking about that. And I went, wait, what? When did we agree to that? I literally didn't remember discussing that ever. So it's just... in my horrible memory brain, it just got dropped in my lap, and I was like, "Oh, this is terrible."
Well, and the funny part was, we were like, "Hey, we're all watching this." And you go, "I'm not doing that," and it's like you agreed to it, and you're like, "No, I didn't." And then literally, Silver is sitting there going, "We talked about it in the puck. Like it's on record that you agreed we were."
I literally did not remember that at all. That is 100% overnight brain. My memory is so bad now since I started working overnights. It's awful.
And you were deliberately.
Well, guess what? We also have an essay due. Did you forget about that too?
Wait, what now?
We have an essay due on Rings of Power that we're submitting to Rhett for grading. Did you forget that?
Yep, I did. I had a last minute that. Back in college, baby.
Get to work on that.
Yeah.
By the end of that, everybody's got to turn in their 50-page essay, and I'm going to grade you, and this is going to affect your future.
50-page? Oh.
Footnotes. Turabian.
Oh God. I mean, thank God it's Turabian. If it was APA or MLA, I'd be pissed. But
I'm being really upset right now.
I would not be doing it.
We are going to.
Yeah, it's great.
By the way, we are going to have a little respite. I thought I calculated this would meet up exactly with season 2. And then I went and looked at the map, and I was like, we're going to have a week or two of respite, which will be good for us because we're going to have a week we're going to have to watch 3 hours because it's going to be 3 episodes at once. So at the very least, when this show is over, we're going to have a week or so of relax, and we're going to go right into it. It'll give me some time to do something stupid like an intro or whatever.
Where we can actually watch something that's good for once.
Well, you're so cynical. Aren't you approaching Rings of Power with an open mind? With an open heart?
I am approaching it with an open mind, and every time I watch it, I am disappointed that it doesn't get any better.
Stuff leaks out? You tilt your head and you lose part of your frontal cortex?
Yeah.
my brain.
Your prefrontal cortex?
If that was... I keep earplugs in because if I didn't, then I would probably be enjoying the show with all the brain leakage.
Jason's suggesting that if you like Rings of Power, you're stupid and you have brain damage.
Yeah, that's exactly what he's saying.
How could
I stand behind that.
You're attacking other people who enjoy a thing. How could you?
How dare you?
How dare you?
I don't wish them any ill will. I just think they have a screw loose.
No, we're going to start inflating it to aggressive rhetoric where basically You want the return of concentration camps if you're into Rings of Power.
Jason's like, I don't wish them any ill will. I just think they're horrible people.
We just need to get them together and put them on a farm somewhere so they can run around. Maybe
all by
give them work
themselves.
to do. Gather some things, make their own clothes, cotton perhaps. I don't know.
No, dear.
At any rate, we are
Commune.
going into Rings of Power, kicking and screaming. We're on the penultimate episode, and we're going to see the results of the giant pockeclips that is. Well, I'm not going to label it, but a volcano of an indescript name. I'm doing my best. We get a
Oh, no.
close in.
Oh my god, I hate this show so much.
We get a close
Like-
in.
I like how the show just demands that you don't no, it's not that obvious. Shut up. Like,
Don't question it.
oh my
This is a world of
god.
myth and magic. There is no science here.
Oh god. Yeah.
Well, old Sourpuss is running around
Seriously,
here.
none of these people would be alive.
Well, by all accounts, you are correct. They should all be cinder and ash and melted faces. Correct. But we have old Sourpuss here wandering around in the ashes, and the results of the old man putting the heroin dagger into the dam. I don't want to make it sound
Yeah, you
dumber
do.
than it is, but it's pretty dumb. But she runs into Theo. Nobody else, just her and Theo run into each other in the devastation that is a result of the volcano. We also go forward in time. I have serious questions. So she's walking around. They were all in the town. She's walking around, sees nobody, runs into Theo, and they limp away together. Now we go into other part of town where there's a lot of people walking around and trying to figure out what's going on and help out those who are injured as you would. Elendil's trying to pick up a piece of debris off of one of the soldiers, one of the friends of his son, Isildur. The queen runs over and helps him pick up the thing he couldn't pick up himself, but her and her scrawny arms
No,
was
it
just
was-
enough to lift the thing.
It was Isildur, wasn't it? That was helping
It was
him.
Isildur, and he was trying to lift the thing off of his friend, and that's when they saw that his other friend was
Oh,
also.
that's right. I
under
thought
there,
it was
and-
Elendil,
yeah.
but Elendil's not here. So it's Isildur,
No,
and then the queen comes and helps lifts it off. Still,
Mhm.
I don't know why she suddenly was enough to help lift this giant log, but
power boss. Girl.
she's a power top.
Yeah,
Oh.
Shut up, Ross.
and
We're
and
moving
then
forward.
Isildur apparently dies in this scene. But the thing
Does
is
he?
that we all know that he does. Yeah,
I didn't
yeah,
get
because
that.
they
It
go
was hard to tell.
they go into the inn to save the children and stuff because they can hear them.
Oh, and then
And,
it collapses. Okay, I didn't register
it
that was
collapses
a
and he doesn't-
Isildur.
Yeah,
What, was that a little confusing visually, Rat? What do you mean? Is it a
Well,
little
they're
hard
all
to tell?
Orange people.
Well, they all have the same, unless it's the one friend who has like very, very curly hair. They all have like the same kind of length of hair, and they're all covered in ash. So it's like
And
you
everything
can't tell who's
is-
who.
All of the color grading is just aggressively orange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It literally looks like they're in the middle of a wildfire, like directly in the middle of it.
Right.
but the thing is, they pretty much are at this point.
I
The
like
thing
the
is
horse
that
running
we all
by on
know-
fire.
We all know. Yeah, that was weird.
It's great.
We all know that nothing that Isildur survives.
Do we?
Don't
Yes.
metagame this at all.
I'm not.
Well, how about this, Jason? If we accept the fact that the plot is horrific, that doesn't follow the lore, could you at least accept the fact that
Okay.
characters, if it's not following the lore, may not survive, so you can give the show some sort of threat and angst instead of steal it from it by metagaming the entire story?
I would have to completely disassociate myself from this being in any way or shape, form connected with the Lord of the Rings.
And you
We'll
haven't
start
already?
doing it.
You haven't already?
No.
This is so disconnected from the original lore that, like, Superman could fly in and it'll be like, yep, here he is to save the day.
Hey, sure, why not? Makes sense to me, pal.
Well, see, that may be how Isildur survives. Maybe Superman saved him.
Dun, dun, dun. Dun, 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 dun.
Or there goes my hero.
Watch him as he goes. Save the guy that's going to curse the land in the future by not throwing the ring in the fire.
We don't know it's the same as Isildur. Thank you.
Yeah, could be Isildur the Second, or the guy who takes his name over after he passes away. We don't know.
His name is Isildur the Younger or something. I don't know.
Maybe he adopts the other friend and just names him Isildur and says, I'm going to adopt you. You'll be my new son.
Oh my gosh.
And he's Isildur.
You are now my new boy.
Head. That's how it works. I hope it's Broccoli Head. I hope it is.
Well, the other friend is dead, so it has to be Broccoli Head.
Well, then my hope will be succeeded then.
There you go.
Thank God.
Or this whole time, it's been his daughter.
His daughter will be the new Isildur.
There we go. Yeah. It makes sense now. That's why they put her in there.
Because we need more women in STEM, his daughter will take over. At any rate,
we need more women in horrible leadership.
in bad decision-making leadership. Well, we zoom forward to the Harfoots, who we pretty much forgot about entirely last episode. They just didn't exist.
Yep. No, and it was great. I mean, sad.
The Harfoots are trudging along. The dirty mud people.
The grub Irish. I love them. They're my favorite kind of people. They're great people.
For people who weren't there for that episode, apparently Ireland was not very happy with the depictions of the Harfoots in this show, and publicly said so.
Can't imagine why. It's very strange.
Yeah. Well, they show up, and it looks like all of the apple trees. I guess they stop here and they eat a lot of apples, classically, and all the apple trees have been burned down, and they're really bummed out about it because they needed them apple trees. And
so,
what's that, Jason?
I was just gonna say this little scene here doesn't make any sense to me. So
why?
If you think it's because of the way that societies establish themselves, there were hunter-gatherer tribes and stuff, and they would go around. But the thing is that you wouldn't have apples like this just out in the wilderness growing, because
there was a house here.
Apples. There was?
Yeah, there's ruins with like a chimney.
Oh, okay. I didn't notice that part.
Yeah, you see, they hide in it later. Oh,
I'm going to struggle to find it.
Then,
but if you look in the background,
case, it does make more sense, because then it could have been
right here. There are ruins. You see it?
Okay. Yeah, I see it.
So maybe somebody lived here beforehand, and this is an orchard that's left over, and they no longer live here.
Yeah.
Because it looks like the burned sections didn't touch this. So this is ruins of what used to be a farm, and then the burned sections are falling debris from, we assume, the volcano. And with where we think they are on the map, those rocks traveled absurd distances.
A really long way.
Once again, unrealistic, but we're dealing with magic giant mountain that was created through mechanical means, so not so magic, but I don't know. But these are volcanic rocks that dropped and caused problems for the Harfoots. I thought you were going in the direction of it doesn't make sense that they would know exactly where these are. If they're like caravan migrant people, how would they know? And the only conclusion I would come up with is they're not moving to a location, they're just moving, so there must be a circuit of sorts. almost like the migration of
that-
deer.
That's the way that I understood it, was that that they're just they go and they stop at certain places because those places have food traditionally for them.
Yeah.
So they stopped at this place. But I was sitting there thinking, why would there be apples like this just randomly somewhere in the wilderness? And I didn't notice that there were those ruins, because if you think about it, apples were a cultivated product, and they wouldn't just grow in the wilderness and be these nice red shiny round apples. They would be like crab apples, something really small, and possibly not that great. And it wasn't until people started actually living in places that you started to get produce like this.
Granted, I would guarantee they didn't think that far ahead. At any rate, the stranger, not Gandalf, goes and starts rubbing up on the tree and whispering sweet nothings. And the tree starts shaking and weird things start happening. And everybody gets too close and a branch falls because one of their crap kids wanders too close and it nearly hits the kid. And then they look at him like, you monster. And I was like, this is exactly like the situation where Nori touched his arm while he was putting it in the pool to, I assume, freeze it and heal his hand. And then she touched it and hurt her own hand. And then she looked at him like, how dare you? And it's like, well, it's your fault.
Yeah.
You touched his hand. And this seems like the exact same moment where it's like no one's watching the kid. The kid wanders in and something breaks off the tree and nearly hits her. And they're like, how could you? And it's like, well, that's your fault. You got too close to the... It's very dumb. I don't like the motivation. I don't like the premise behind why they distrust the character and why things are set up this. It'd be one thing if he walked up and cast lightning at it or something, but he didn't.
Yeah.
Like at no point was he casting spell, drop branch from tree to land on child spell.
On kid.
Right.
Well, it show like it always, when they do this with this interaction between these characters, between the Harfoots and the totally not Gandalf, it just makes them seem really stupid.
Yeah.
Like not even superstitious, but like genuinely dumb.
Like just degenerate.
They
children who don't know
automatically
what to do.
assume that he's healing the tree or whatever, and that he's going to somehow make it bloom.
I don't know if they know or
right
make any
before their
assumptions. They're just watching him whisper at a tree.
Well, no, she says something about it. She says something like, "Oh, he's fixing the tree" or something like that.
Does
And
she?
they're like, "Oh," and so they don't know that. They can't speak this magic language. They're not even sure he's doing magic. He's just some weird old dude that's talking to a tree.
Just a bum.
Well, even if they thought that, does this now conclude that if they thought he was fixing the tree and then a branch fell off, they're like, oh, were you hurting the tree? It's already dead. What was their conclusion after that?
Like,
that he intentionally
it might
cast
not
the
have even
spell
been
to
him.
drop the branch? Like, he's so much bigger than them, he could have just pulled the branch down and hit the kid with it.
Well, not only that, but like I said, you mentioned that this tree is dead, and we can all see that it's scorched and blackened and all that stuff. That branch could have just fallen by
Yes.
itself.
I don't know
Yeah.
why they're upset with him, is my question.
Because they're dumb.
I cast kick child. Yeah.
I cast OSHA incident.
You didn't have your hard hat. And then he looks like they try and get him to look emotionally hurt because they're like, we're kicking you out. Or we're upset with you. They don't kick him out until later, I think. Until a little later. Anyway, we zoom forward.
A little later, yeah.
Dwarves are talking, and it's Elrond with his perfectly coiffed hair chatting with Durin the father and Durin the younger and some other dwarves are sitting here hanging out, and they're chatting, and he's talking about all the stuff the elves will offer them for the Mithril. And he's listening, and then he makes Elrond leave so that he can have an individual conversation with his son. I'm going to be honest, I found... Like this might come as a shock overall as a show because we've been very cynical and critical of the show overall. Despite some of the nitpicks so far, I'm talking so far, I found the show to be pretty not amazing, but like the best so far because it had some character development. I like the interaction between the son and the father. How the father had some sort of motives for not letting them dig Mithril, and his son didn't understand. They were developing the characters, giving me reasons for their motivations, and I liked that we got something, some acting. The story just wasn't doing whatever. You know what I mean?
I do understand what you mean. I felt that Durin's reason for denying the Mithril to the elves was pretty dumb.
Well, that's fine. And his son reacted that same way. That he thinks
Right.
the way you do. So they're actually giving us a story context where what you're doing is you're siding with Prince Durin and his impression of what's going on. I mean, it's
thing is
perfectly fine. That's not a criticism of the writing, that you're buying into at least Prince Durin's perspective.
No, like not even Prince Durin's perspective, because Prince Durin was like, "This is like kicking our allies." I was like, "Oh, that's fine," but no, I just thought that his reasoning behind it. He said that the elves are basically dying, and that it's the will of God that the elves should die, and we shouldn't do anything about it. I'm like, what kind of moronic
Well,
reason
within the
is that?
construct of the universe, I didn't have a problem with that. If his reasoning is,
I don't know.
the will of the divine of the Valar is that the elves have to live. Remember, we're talking the context of this show, despite the fact it's not lore accurate or makes any sense that they have to be nearby the light of the Eldar. But because they're not by the light of the Eldar and they're a place that they shouldn't be, that everything has a cycle and things live and die. And is it our place to intervene when what they should be doing is going back to Valinor? Is essentially what I got from it. That they're not supposed to be here,
Yeah.
and are we intervening in the will of the gods?
Hmm. Honestly, as someone who's not read anything other than The Hobbit, I understood the reasoning. Like, whether or not it's true, like, I don't know, but like, I totally get why somebody in that world might think that.
Yeah, I didn't have a problem with it.
Mm.
Anyway, they have a conversation. He's upset because he thinks he needs to help his friend Elrond because he means so much to him because they're so close. And he goes and talks to Disa, who's like, I'm really pissed off about this. And Prince Durin, has a reasonable argument. He's like, should I be really disobeying the king? Even if he is my father, he's also my king. Should I disobey him? Like, everybody wants to have some sort of moral anger about this thing, but he's like, the king said no. And Elrond's very understanding, and he drops the mithril on the table next to the dirty leaf with the evil in it, and it heals the leaf just by sitting next to it. There are perhaps a few conclusions you can come to this one. We're gonna get an ad here in a second because of how I'm doing this, so I'm gonna let the ad play. So the idea of Celebrimbor was that having mithril will stop the infection or problem that is causing the elves to go into decline, correct? So I guess the conclusion is that this confirms that, because the mithril is next to the dying tree. So it confirms that they're right about that. But it's like, they already said they were right about that. Do you really need a confirmation to change your mind?
Well, I think it ended up being a motivation for Durin. We'll get into that in just a second. But one of the things that, again, this to me doesn't make any sense. Apparently, right? We have trees from Valinor that are in Middle Earth. Why did the elves bring trees with them when they crossed?
I don't know. It sounds like
I
some
don't know. It
dumb
doesn't
elf
make any
crap
sense.
to me.
Yeah, it seems like something
On
else
top
would
of
be.
that, on top of that, it doesn't seem that the white tree that's on Numenor is having any issues, and
Yeah, I
that was
don't know.
supposedly brought by the elves.
Yeah, but there ain't no elves living in Numenor, so they don't got the disease.
It is look,
Really, it's a problem with the elves.
This is an inaccurate depiction of the lore, and it doesn't make any sense, and it's confusing. But yes, the elves are in decline. Well, because I interpret it as, well, the elves are in decline, so we need this. But instead, it's like literally, we have got goo black infection problem.
Yeah.
Like it's almost like we've all got horrific like Middle Earth syphilis, and if we don't get this, we won't be able to cure our Middle Earth syphilis.
Not
You
the tree
know.
syphilis. Oh no.
Not the tree syphilis. It's the tree hugger disease. We get too close to them,
And
we catch
if
it.
they're
Tree
if the
STD.
elves are in decline, if the elves are in decline, right?
Right.
But they believe that Sauron has been destroyed and Middle Earth is safe. Why don't they all just go back to Valinor?
They don't want to. They want to stay in Middle Earth because I
Right,
like it
but-
here.
But they're sending everybody back. They practically forced Galadriel at sword point to get on
Well-
the boat and go back home.
Because she's got perpetual sourpuss and she ruins all the parties.
Right. But
She's
the
really
fact
bringing
that-
down the
that
vibe, man.
Yeah.
The
she
elves
is.
are in decline, and we know how to fix it. All we have to do is go back to Valinor.
I mean, you're right, but they don't want to. Because they act like this is dire need instead of like, we're being deported from Middle Earth. Like, literally, the gods are deporting us by giving us a disease, saying, you got to go home. But instead, they're acting like we're all going to die. It's like, well, you could go home. No, I'll just stay and die.
Mhm.
Yeah. Why? Go back home.
They don't want to go
There
home.
Actually, is nothing. There's actually nothing that. I mean, nobody comes back from Valinor, but if they needed to, the gods would actually let them.
Jason, they like it here, and they want to take the Numenorian gerbs. Keeping with the immigrant analogy. They don't want to go back to Valinor. They want
Columbian
to take our
exchange.
gerbs.
The Numenorian
right.
exchange.
So, we're back to gross Fireland. And Galadriel's here with Theo, and they go marching off like, hey, let's get together. She keeps dropping these little, like, overly written Tolkien-esque, like, nuggets. It reminded me, like, hanging out with Mark Twain, who keeps giving you little phrases, and it's like, go away, Mark Twain.
Now, there is some stuff that she says here when she's traveling with Theo, that it sounds like she's finally coming around to the irrationality of the way she's been acting.
I don't know because
Because
she gave those little nuggets before this event. So it was hard to tell that there was a lot of contrition from her.
Well, it doesn't sound like there's contrition, but there's some things that she says to Theo as they're traveling that are like just little things. And there was actually a look on her face when she was telling Theo something that was like, oh, oops. When she realized that what she was saying was actually what she had been doing instead of what she should have been doing, what she was trying to teach Theo. But the thing is to me, it's kind of one of those things where it's too little too late.
No, I mean,
Galadriel,
you're right about that. What I need from the character and the writing and also the actress is perhaps some emotion that she feels bad for creating these events. Something,
No,
right.
How dare you
something
ask.
across her face. Instead, she's constantly got the sourpuss. She gives us nothing. For somebody who was supposedly Morphin Clark, supposedly a stage actress, she has very little emote, except anger and bitterness when it comes to this show. It would have been nice to see something on her face, some sort of expression, some sort of indication that she's unhappy with the current events as opposed to being annoyed.
Very true.
They now go to the Numenorians watching over the civilians as they're evacuating them out of this place. So they had the big battle. They went to the keep, and then they fled to the town, and they had the big battle, and I got the impression that the last of them was like 20, 30 people inside the bar or tavern or whatever. Instead, we're watching what looks like hundreds of people walk by in a refugee line. Did anybody notice the inconsistencies, the amount of villagers that actually existed in this town? Because if you look at the town, there's like 3 buildings.
I hadn't really been paying attention to that part.
There's either, it's between like 30 people and 200 to 300 people. I don't know. It's inconsistent, and it's like they had a big battle. A bunch of them died. Well, there's a bunch of them walking around in this big line of people. We get a moment where this happens twice in the show, just to point out, where it's like, is he alive? You can't quite see him. Oh, it's a different person. And then you get that with Theo later. Is that person alive? Is it that person? And then it's somebody else. And it's like, oh, somebody really liked that visual trick that was overused. But yes, that's not his son. He thought it was, but it isn't. Queen Regent Muriel shows up. She's got a blank stare. She asks how long the mist has been there, or how long they've been out of the mist, and he's like, for miles now. So it looks like she's blind. How is my question? Did she take?
How are her face and eyes so remarkably unburned?
Yes.
I wondered that too.
Well, see, to give an example of Daredevil, when you see Daredevil in the Daredevil movie with Ben Affleck, he has scarring around his eyes because the acid hit him in the eyes. But instead, somehow, the pyroclastic flow focused directly into her eyeballs, not singeing her eyelashes or eyebrows or anything.
It's not even. It wasn't even the pyroclastic flow. It was when when Isildur went into the tavern. Yeah. She went in to go rescue him, and the rest of the timbers fell down, and it was like sparks and fiery bits from that. So it's even more recent than that. It's there would have to be horrendous burning, because at least if it was the pyroclastic flow, it's like like a ton of ash went in there and like rock bits or something, and it just shredded her eyeball. But her face would be so horrifically burned if it was enough to blind her.
Yeah.
I mean, at least give her milky contacts. What the hell?
But she still needs to look hot, so they can't do anything. So they just stare blankly as the damage to your eye, as the damage solely specifically hit both eyeballs. Not the rest of your face, both eyes. She should have walked out with massive burns and be like, oh, that justifies it. She just can't see anymore. But instead it just was just enough to not damage her face in any way. It's poor. It's really bad. Now
real bad.
Yeah, we cut to Theo and Galadriel. Here's another question I had. So they both got up and wandered out, and they're trying to find the Numenorian camp. And then everybody else got up, and they were saving everybody and wandered out. Weren't they in the same village? Did this happen at different times, or are they millions of miles apart?
I'm glad I wasn't the only one confused, because did they just leave later, or they were in the same?
Did they just abandon each other?
It's like Theo and Galadriel went out the left side of the village, and everybody else went out the right side.
Literally, seriously.
At no point did they turn around and be like, "Hey, you guys, come join us." They're like, "No, we're leaving this direction."
What about his mom?
Will never show
he didn't think I need to confirm that my son's alive or dead before I move on. No, she just leaves.
She didn't sift through the debris first.
Is it
not only that,
for 2 seconds.
Galadriel's like, "Come with me," and Theo's like, "Well, shouldn't we look for my mom and Arondir?" And he's just like, "Okay," and he leaves them too.
Well, see, here's my problem, because it has to be, because they present it as if they all wake up around the same time and then try and head to a meeting place with the Numenorian campus. They present it that way, but you could conclude that perhaps they're waking up at different times. Like maybe Galadriel and Theo were buried. Everybody else got up and left, and they woke up with nobody around, and they're like, we need to catch up. But that's not how the show presents it. It presents it as if they're all waking up at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So if they woke up at different times and Galadriel and Theo were buried, and everybody else woke up, gathered everybody they could, and then left, how did they not find them?
And how did when Theo and Galadriel left, if everybody else had gathered and left, they would have seen footprints.
I mean, I suppose, but my biggest issue is when they're looking around the bodies to check to see who's alive, Galadriel was clearly laying there. At no point did they go, oh, it's Galadriel. Even if she was dead, they would have recovered her body.
Right.
She wasn't under debris.
Yeah, you would have needed, like, a couple things needed to change for this to make any sense for them to be separated from the rest. You either need to have literally, I think, comes down to insert shots. You either need an insert shot of, like, people being blown away, literally, by the pyroclastic flow, like being flung.
Right.
Or you could have just had a moment, even though it would have been a little bit harder to believe, because it kind of implies they spent a lot of time looking for people in that village. Just have a shot where her arm or his arm, or, like one or both of their, like, hands, arms, eyes, face, something, like you see it come up from, like, ash and rubble.
Like they're buried,
Right.
so
So
they
you
couldn't
couldn't
see
see them because they were hidden.
And you could literally have it where, like, the frickin' the caravan or people are leaving, and then the focus shifts to something closer to the camera, and it's like the rubble that the hand comes up out of.
That
And it
would
would
have
have told
been
you everything you would have needed to know.
that would have been a beautiful shot, indicating that they thought they were dead or they didn't see them and they left. But instead, we get a shot of her laying on the ground with ash on her and just sitting up. So I have to come to the conclusion that everybody else just left her there.
Yeah.
And if we make this even in a weirder conclusion, if they woke up first and everybody else were the ones that were buried, why didn't they do anything? Why didn't they look around and go, look at all of the bodies that haven't woken up yet? We're going to do something about it.
Right.
There are weird issues with a scene that would have taken little effort to resolve.
Yeah.
But they're super
mean, if they
separated,
showed
I
them
assume, by miles.
Yeah.
If they'd shown them like getting blown away, then that would explain why Theo and Galadriel have to, work their way back to the camp, because they were outside the village and everybody else was still inside the village.
But they weren't,
Yeah.
and it's implied that they were miles distant from the. So it's like,
Yeah.
what, does she get blown 8 miles from the village and then wake up in village ruins? What is this?
Yeah. Somebody brought her back and dropped her off in the village and then took off.
She gives him some sort of
It'll be okay
inspirational platitudes, and then she's like, "Oh, what it's like to be a soldier," and gives him her sword. And this
And see,
is
this-
an
this
incompetent
is-
little douche kid, so I would not give him your sword. But she gives
Yeah,
him
maybe
the
your
sword.
Right.
dagger. Also, do you notice how they're trying to make this come full circle for Galadriel, and it's not paying off?
That's what I was alluding to.
Like,
That she's finally starting to figure out that she's been a moron the entire time.
yeah,
Well, then
for,
maybe
like, the
show
last
it on her
century.
face, huh? Maybe give me some indication of regret.
Yeah, other than when she's riding a horse in slow motion, she kind of always has the same look on her face.
Earn the millions of dollars
What-
I assume Amazon paid you for this.
Which I can't, I cannot believe is the actress. That's got to be the direction.
I
How can a
hope.
stage actress be that?
Unemotional, yeah.
Unemotive.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's funny, if you watch in the trailer and the upcoming content for season 2, it seems like they're making a lot of effort to soften Morphin Clark's face
Yeah.
to make her look, because she's got
Oh.
perpetual angry sourpuss, and it's like, that's not going to work for anything.
no.
It has to be how they told her. I have to believe that they told her to act like this. So
It's
that
the
it was
only
just
thing that makes any
written
sense.
written that poorly. Anyway, we're back to the Numenorians, and he's like, "Oh no, my queen can't see," and she's like, "Don't let anybody see it." Anyway,
They're gonna notice when you keep hitting tree branches on your horse,
no.
man.
well, it's
Anyway.
funny. They even do the thing where she doesn't blink and gets really close to hitting a tree branch.
Yeah.
We're back to the Harfoots, and they're like, "We don't like that you touched a tree and whispered, and a branch fell, and someone almost got hurt. So you gotta leave. You gotta get out of here." And she's like, "Here is an
Get out of here,
apple.
freak.
I feel bad. I shouldn't have gone and looked for the guy that was yeeted from heaven."
I mean, fair, but also unreasonable.
Then we cut to Morphin Clark doing more character development, talking about things. She finally refers to her husband, and we have massive questions of
Oh
where
my
is this
gosh.
guy? Because at this point, she
He's
should
dead.
be married. She should have children. Like, where are all these people?
Yeah.
And it turns out he's dead.
He's dead, Jim.
Dead.
Chatting with Theo, giving him sort of boilerplate, like, messaging, and then they see orcs show up, and Theo's first instinct is to pull out his little dagger, which prompted my mother's like, "You stupid kid." Because he pulled
I
it
have a
out so
question.
aggressively that everybody could hear the sling of him pulling it out of the sling.
Yeah. I have a question. Did
Oh.
you notice what the was the orc that was coming over? By the way, they're trying to ape off the Fellowship of the Ring imagery of the Ring Wraith, but we'll go
I
past
agree.
that real
I
quick.
agree.
But the orc that came over to do the sniffing,
Uh-huh.
was he wearing Numenorian armor?
No.
Is that
Oh,
Because if he is, I actually like that, because that implies they've already been to the village and picked up armor off dead people.
I'm going to try and play a little bit to see if we can't get a good shot at it. Numenorian, the scales on their armor are smoother, and his are jaggedy.
Oh my god! See, that's all right. That's what I was worried about. I
Yeah.
wanted a second opinion
Yeah,
because
it's not.
that's worse. That's dumber. That's
That would have been an
bad
interesting
visual.
visual indicator. Yeah, it would have been a little.
Yeah, I would have loved that if they're like something, because they do that in the Lord of the Rings movies, don't they? Where they like suddenly see orcs walking around with like Gondorian stuff and like
Yeah.
because they just pick
Yeah.
it up and start using it.
There is a
Like, I
close
like
shot,
that. I think it's cool.
and it looks more rough scales, where the Numenorian armor is a lot more smooth, so it's not the same.
Yeah. So they. You want to know what I bet that was? I bet that was a reject from the actual like mold of the. And so they gave that to the orc team to like just throw that on an orc somewhere, whatever.
Sure.
I forgot to paint it black.
A lot of scale armor going on.
Yeah.
We move on to Elrond hanging out with Durin, and they're talking about digging holes because Durin decided he's upset with his paw. He's going through teenage
Yeah.
angst. He's really annoyed with his dad who won't let him fly. He's a butterfly and he has wings and he wants to fly, and his dad won't let him fly.
He's like a bird. He wanna fly away.
I don't know where my home is. Well, they're talking, and he's like, "Sorry about my dad," and Elrond's like, "It's okay." I found this conversation to be good character development and character interaction stuff. I liked it.
Yeah, it actually worked.
Yeah, I liked it.
I thought it was just fine. I had no negative notes on it.
There was stuff in this episode that I appreciated. There was some character development. I appreciated where the story was going. They were at least giving me something. They were giving me something. Anyway, he finally pokes a hole through. It looks like I'm at the exact right moment. I'm going to play this, but how horrific is the CGI of these rocks breaking open? Like, how bad
I'm
is this?
glad you noticed that.
Oh, it's really
so-
bad.
It literally. I have a note. Hold on.
Yeah.
Where it
Ruffling
looks
the
like a
rocks.
scene from Xena is what I put.
Mm.
And that and his comically large pickaxe. Did you notice that too?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like shocking. Like, why isn't it made for hit anyway? Whatever. But
It
yes, that
reminded me-
CGI literally looks like Xena.
It reminded me of like a PlayStation 2 game or something where it's just like,
Oh yes,
The rocks moved.
Whoa! Look at those cutscenes, bro.
Whoa.
Whoa!
He's like, oh, look at all the mithril. There's a crap load of mithril back here. So it's look like they can
Yeah.
save all of the elves, everybody. They can save
could.
all of the elves. And he turns around, and it's his paw. Oh no, his dad's here. He's told him not to do
no.
that. Dad said, don't do that. And he's
Daddy-o.
like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it anyway.
There's
Look
so
at
much
Pa.
mithril.
There's so much mithril. Well, I was talking to his dad. His dad's really disappointed in his son, which is the worst thing that could happen to a son, is be disappoint his father,
Yeah.
which happens constantly for anybody who has ever been a son or a dad. Just disappointment everywhere.
No one's ever satisfied. Ever.
It looks like they just push Elrond out the door, and they're like, get out of here.
Go on,
Yeah.
you.
And he just like sits down like he was kicked out of the kingdom. He's like, I'm really bummed out about this. We found a lot of mithril.
Like he got kicked out of his favorite bar.
Yeah. He's still a little drunk. Anyway, we get a good character interaction between Durin and his dad again.
Yeah.
An emotional conversation where his dad's upset about what he did, and they talk about his mother, and his dad gets real upset, and basically it implies like he casts him off as his heir.
yeah.
I found the conversation to be good. I like the conversation.
Is it weird? I was gonna say, is it weird that was working for me?
Yes.
I'm shocked that this
Well,
movie,
well,
that
this is
this
good.
show's doing something that works.
There are some dumb parts in this episode, but I'm going to shock everybody by saying I think this is the best episode, and it's mostly character development.
Yeah.
Nothing
It's funny how that
happens.
works.
Nothing happened, but we got character development. So I was like, this is what I wanted. Yeah, it's great. The relationship between them is strained or broken. His dad's really disappointed, and he basically
Well,
is
and it's like they're both laying out like I worry that we're digging too deep, that we're gonna, like, he kind of implies we're gonna run into something. Hint, hint.
I don't know what you're
And
talking about.
very obviously, Durin wants to save his friend's race and his people, and it works.
Well,
It works great.
I like the dialogue where the dad talks about seeing him as a child and saying, you're going to move mountains and be this great man. And then Durin's response is, you won't let me be that person because you keep stifling
Yep.
me and my ambitions.
Mhm.
And it's a great conversation between, like, it's a father-son conversation. It's really good.
No, it is a good conversation.
Yeah. And then
I mean,
feelings are hurt. Like,
Once again,
relationships are damaged.
this to me is
I know, Ad.
one of those ones where you get some good conversation going, but you have to pull back from the lore, and you can't compare what's going on here with what Tolkien actually wrote about what happened in Moria, because then you start realizing the inconsistencies in
Jason?
what they're doing.
Jason, you're not wrong, but this is a problem we addressed near the beginning of the show. If
Yes.
we're constantly going to be going back and going, they ruin the lore, then you're going to get nothing from the show. Because if all we do is go, you ruin the lore, then it's all just, we should set Amazon on fire
Right.
at this point.
Right, and I just
So
wanted
we
to
have
bring
to
this.
deal with the
only
show
reason
we
I brought this
have.
back up. Right. The only reason I wanted to bring this back up was just to touch briefly again on the why they didn't think they were going to be compared against.
Well, and I was going to say,
Anything
maybe that's
else?
something, because I think it's good. We did address it at the beginning, and I think that is something that we should definitely bring up after we finish. With
Yeah,
the
as a
show, at least
recap,
this
sure.
season. Because it inherently cannot be avoided, and it is a problem that this show has. There's inherent issues that come with wanting your cake and eating it too. So
you want
but
the
yeah,
Lord
'cause
of the Rings name, but you want to do your own thing, and you can't have both.
Yeah. And literally every episode is just chock full of these problems, and to the point where you got to ignore it, because otherwise it's just
Yeah, we can't
that's
treat the
why-
show as
yeah.
its own show if we talk about all the inconsistencies and inaccuracies, because that's all we would talk about. That this would be a lore video of all of the things Rings of Power got wrong, and it's like I can't assess
Right.
a show fairly if all I do is talk about how bad they are treating the lore. It's just that they do.
'Cause, like,
It's-
which is why I haven't pointed out what the inconsistency is. I just
But I do agree. I think we should bring it up though after we
No,
finish the
there-
season, because
there
it
should be
bears
a-
being talked about.
we
For
have a
sure.
week or two gap between. There would be a fair conversation to be had at the end of this, sort of a recap. And I may, which I don't know if I want to set myself up for this, I may sit down and try and rewatch everything to get a full context, but
Yeah,
I don't know if I want to punish
Oof.
myself in that way.
that's,
Yeah, why would you do
and
that?
punishment
You
is
might-
correct. That is the correct term.
Yeah.
yeah.
Nori wakes up. She's hanging out with Poppy. I forgot her name was Poppy. What a horrible. Anyway, she wakes up and she's like, "Here's an apple," and she's like, "We need to save those for food." And they go out and it's like, "Oh, it's amazing." He whispered to the tree, and there are apples everywhere. So apparently, he cast an
Sure.
apple spell, not a break a branch spell, to hurt a child.
Well,
I
not
cast
not
apple.
only did he bring the apples back, but he basically brought back stuff that wasn't even there to begin with. They had berries and they had all sorts of bushes and produce and whatnot. And so it wasn't just he basically turned this into a kind of a Garden of Eden type place where
He's
they could
good
get
at
whatever they want here.
he's good at whispering sweet nothings. To be fair, we don't know what the makeup of that, I guess, garden was. So if he's restoring the vegetation, maybe there already was berries and stuff, and he's just bringing them back as opposed to creating a bunch of berries. I don't know if that context really
And,
means
yeah.
anything.
I mean, whatever the spell that he did, it basically rejuvenated the area.
Sure.
And so it went from being this scorched, desolate once farm to actual producing, and they had everything that they needed at that point.
Well,
more
Poppy
than what they
wanders
need.
off. She starts singing some songs about whatever. The song almost seemed like it was going to be kind of dirty. Like, what's this lyric? Old booger buck, he caught her so juicy and sweet. Okay. Anyway, she's thinking to herself, and then she sees a footprint and freaks out and drops her bucket and runs away. And for Harfoots that are very good at hiding and very good at being careful, dropping her bucket in the river is what alerts them to the fact the Harfoots are around. She
She
could have
may
run away
be
with
an
the
idiot.
bucket. Well, that's granted, she may be an idiot, but dropping the bucket in the river is what warns the Nazgals of perhaps that the Harfoots are around. So dropping the bucket, it was a bad decision.
The they them brigade.
Yes. I don't know what they're trying to do with this. She sewn some leg here. I don't know if they're trying to do the sexy thing or
I've seen
all of them have
I don't know if you
blank,
remember,
horrible
Red.
stares. What's that?
But I've seen so many girls on the college campus look just like this.
What?
Oh yeah, like on the natural resources side of things.
Oh,
there's
yeah, yeah.
quite a few.
Part of the campus. You'll get that.
Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to.
Did she have the? Did they have the boob armor and the helmets?
No, but it would have been way cooler if they
The
did.
shaved heads.
Shaved heads, yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I don't know what this headpiece is supposed to.
They're like terrible versions of Valkyries,
Yeah,
except they're not. They're like Lord of the Rings Boba Fett's.
you
or
notice the staff with the eye on it.
Booba Fett's.
Oh.
Booba Fest. Oh snap. Yeah, so everybody goes and hides, and the Nazgals or the They Them Brigade or Booba Fett's go wandering up a hill. And Nori comes out for some obscure reason, and she's like, he didn't go that way, he went this way.
That was one of the dumbest parts to me. That was
I literally, do you want to know my notes?
What's
so
that?
dumb.
Nori is dumb as hell. That was my note.
That's what you wrote down?
Well, yep.
That's exactly what I wrote down. And as soon as I was looking through my notes again, I knew exactly where I was talking about. There you go.
You didn't forget what you meant when you wrote instead of in general,
no.
it was specified to this spot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she alerts them, and they're like, huh? And suddenly they have warping capabilities, and she appears right over there.
What are they, ghosts? It would turn into a Conjuring movie. What the hell is this?
Well, and here's something funny. So you have this scene that almost is reminiscent of the Nazgul sort of reaching out in Fellowship. She has got the most gnarled, bony hands. Can I just say? I don't know if you could see this very well. Look at how bent out her fingers are.
Oh, make them look worse. Come on, honey. I really jag them up. Like just make them look terrible. Real scary.
Now, when you reach out, imagine you're a skeleton reaching from the grave.
I wonder if that's actually her hand with like makeup applied, or if they got some stunt hand, or like we need people to come in and audition, and they have to have just the gnarliest fingers.
Oh, dude! If it was
and they picked this one,
I want that casting call. I need to see that.
You're like, I want to show up and see the people who showed up for this. Just the most messed up, like arthritic hands you could possibly find.
Yeah, that's what I need. Crushed in like a garbage compactor.
Yeah.
Give me that. Yeah.
Anyway, Nori's paw shows up and he's like, fire, and he points and she touches it, and everyone's blown away.
By the way,
kind of
the most horrific line: if you harm a hair on her foot, just terrible, just awful.
Yeah.
They love referring to the Harfoot issue that because there's another reference in this episode where it's like, our hearts are as big as our feet, and I'm like, stop talking about your feet. Good Lord.
Our dirty, unshod foot.
Well, it's like, I can imagine talking about your large feet when you're comparing them to the size of other species, but you spend all your time with your own species.
Yeah, you're not,
why would it seem weird? All your species have the same size foot. That it's like if we're all walking around going like, 2 arms, 2 legs, wink. And it's like, yeah, well, everybody has those.
Not only that, but their feet aren't bigger than like men's feet. Men have bigger feet.
Well, they're just proportional.
They would
have no like frame of reference to that.
Yeah.
No, they don't. That's my point. They're not comparing it to anything, so why would they constantly point out how big and different their feet are compared to everybody else?
God, because they're just so big and different, you know?
That's weird.
It's just so different.
Hey, everybody, I got big feet. Wink. Just like, stop talking about it. Jeez. Shut up about your feet.
Shut up about your feet.
Shut up about the sun.
The Harfoots have a foot fetish.
They do. She blows the ashes from the torch and sets all their crap on fire. Like, this is devastating. Especially when they all got these hand carts that they got to pull everywhere. That's all their stuff. That's everything they got. They got really upset about it. Clearly, he didn't harm her foot, though, so she obeyed his threat.
Yeah,
as far as I could tell.
She followed the rule.
Yeah. Well, it's really bad. They lost their carts. And we're in the Numenor camp, where there's loads of soldiers survived and peoples. And there's this thing with it's like they're trying to do the Brago thing with Aragorn, where it's like the horse is unhappy, he's got to go find him, or whatever. So we can't tame this horse. He's only Isildur's horse, so they let Isildur's horse go.
Yeah.
And he goes galloping off to have a time. I should never have pulled the elf on board. He's regretting that too, yeah. You should have let that stupid strumpet drown. It would have been better for her
yo.
people. Do you have a better term?
No, I just knife-ear is my preferred. I like to keep it racial, you know.
Keep it racial, which they pulled from Dragon Age of all things. That's not a Lord of the Rings reference, but
Sure isn't.
well, they made it, and he basically just has her sword. He's like, "I'm awesome now. I got more heroin, a new thing to hold on to and pet." And he shows up into the infirmary tent, and he's looking around for his mom, and he has the same moment that Elendil had before. He's like, "Oh, is that my mom?" And then, nope, it's not my mom. Oh, is that? Oh, that's not my mom.
Oh.
It's a cheap trick if you keep using it.
Yeah, especially in the same episode.
Yes. Oh, look, it's his mom. They found each other. Oh, and it's Arendir. Yay, Arendir's back with the awesome fade.
One fade to rule them all.
You want to know my note for this?
What's that?
Theo loves his black stepdad.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, he does. Big fan.
Teaches him basketball.
And the cool slang and handshakes.
Yeah. It's okay, my dad is black.
He identifies.
Well, he's talking to the Queen Regent, who's now no longer pretending she's blind, I guess.
What the fuck? Why are you covering your eyes? They weren't
Makes
that
it
hurt.
very obvious.
Yeah,
She's...
Rhett, do you know what this reminded me of?
What?
Do you remember episode, I think it's 3 of Band of Brothers, where they're Tate Carentan?
Okay.
And there's that character Blythe who has hysterical blindness.
Yeah, where he's just
I
blank
think that's
staring.
what's going on with her.
You think she
Yeah,
has
you just,
hysterical
like-
and then all she needs is the lieutenant to show up and scream, "Get up and shoot your gun," and then he gets it back and then dies really quickly.
Pour it on him, Blythe! Give it to him! And like 3 different people try and give her a pep talk and it doesn't work.
Well,
You have
just
somebody saying it's just a game. Somebody else says it doesn't matter, you're already dead. None of that's working, but Lieutenant Winters.
Who was that? Spears? Who told him that?
Well, Spears is one of them. Yeah, it was
I think
Welsh.
he's the one that
was
said-
he's like, it's just a game, Blythe.
I think Spears
And
said
then
it doesn't matter.
Spears-
You're already dead.
Yep, you need to treat yourself as if you're already dead.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, at any rate, we might, if there are parallels here, we'll just have to be cautious and see if she finds any Edelweiss. This might change.
On a dead orc.
Yeah. She'll pick it
You
up.
climb
be
to the top of
emboldened.
that mountain to get that.
Yeah. Meant a lot to him. But until she gets her sight back, she's either a massive fan of Raphael or her new senses have been heightened and she will be the new Daredevil.
Daredevil with the
Hopefully in the
Watch
future.
out for her cane nunchucks.
For Kane Nunchucks. At any
And
rate,
this one again is a little bit weird because he's all for let's go back to Numenor. Never wanted to come to this place to begin with, and she didn't really want to come either. But now she's like, no, Numenor is going to be coming back, and I can't help but think that this
This
is
went
what
poorly?
leads to the downfall and destruction of Numenor.
She's letting her emotions get the best of her because now
Well,
it's personal.
I'll be disappointed
Yeah.
because the real downfall of Numenor is supposed to be the internal sort of they did it to themselves.
Yeah.
No. I'm just saying I would prefer that direction. If that's not where they're going, I'm going to be disappointed because I like the corruption on the inside story.
What you want the Sauron the trickster to be like kind of an actual
Yes.
like, deceiver?
Trickster? Yeah,
That's- God, you're so demanding.
I am. I'm unreasonably demanding. Well, they have a conversation. Galadriel shows up, and they have that stupid thing of no one kneels in Numenor or apparently Wakanda. So 2 countries with diverse women who
Two-
don't like kneeling.
2 fakey made up countries.
Yeah. They would kneel in Numenor, by the way. That super would be a thing. And then Galadriel's like, it's all my fault. You get a little bit of contrition here, what I'm looking for. She gets this blank, I'm upset stare. A lot of her emotions seem to be, I don't know how they're telling her to act, but there's at least some subtle, I would have hoped for more. Some pain on her face, better than what we got. Though this isn't too bad. Here. I was, is it any, did you get the same impression I did where she reached out to touch her face? Where it was like, look, Ross, if we were having a moment and I reached out and like started touching your face and moving it, you'd be like, ugh.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, like, we're friends. We've known each other for years. We are not face touching friends, right?
No,
We're not at
But she's
the level
blind,
where I
so
start
she can
groping
pass
you.
Well,
And
so can I state the obvious, or the uncomfortable?
Sure.
It was a weirdly sexual moment.
Is it?
It was weird. Like, there was a weird sexual tension. In
There's
that
a
moment when
weird
she touched
element
her
to the face touching. I agree. It was.
If she would have just done like even like a touch of the cheek, it would have been a little bit more matronly.
There was a lot of
But,
groping.
like, the chin and jawline felt it was really odd. I didn't like that one bit.
It was a weird scene. I don't agree. I don't disagree.
And if she would have just reached further and like grabbed her by like the back of her neck, like kind of like, and like pulled her in a little
kind of
closer,
thing.
like more like a camaraderie thing, that would have worked better. But this,
Grabbed
like, she's
her
almost
arm.
touching her lips with her thumb. It's so weird. Like, I don't. Ugh.
Grabbed her arm, maybe, like upper
Yeah.
arm, and then like a camaraderie, be
Yeah.
like, it's okay, whatever. But instead, she's like groping her face, and it's really weird.
Super strange. Like, I just came so out of nowhere. I'm like, oh, is this? Oh no, okay. They just were really awkward and didn't realize that was strange. Okay.
Maybe it's because we don't understand. Maybe it's a sex thing. Silver, is there a lot of face groping
Yeah, Val.
with you guys?
There's weirdly amount of face groping in this scene. It's freaking weird.
Well, right, but is
But
it
what
just
about
a
as a
woman
woman?
thing? Yeah.
As a woman.
This does not happen amongst female friends.
Oh.
Are you sure? Is it because you don't watch TikTok?
I'm
Is that why?
sure. It could happen on TikTok. Anything could happen on TikTok. No.
Between
No.
between 1 and 10, how many times have you groped another woman's face this week?
0?
Between 10 and 14, how many times have you touched another woman's face?
Sounds like you're falling behind on the quota.
Between 26 and
seriously.
42 times, how
It
many
doesn't
times?
happen.
Between 0.5 and 23.7.
Well, I'm just trying to clarify, because her saying it doesn't happen, but then being like, oh, well, I did it 10 times, but in my realm, that doesn't happen very often. To us, it's like, well, that's a lot of times.
That's
So I have to get more of a
face touch.
specific. That's a lot of face touching.
I haven't even seen this happening.
Is it because you're blind and you're touching other people's faces?
Oh yeah, that could be it.
I've been blind the whole time.
Are you pretending to be a Ninja Turtle and then groping people around you? Is that what's happening? Because you didn't see it
Book
happen.
of Eliing it.
Book of Eli in it. Did you memorize the Bible? Are you really good at Kung Fu without being able to see anybody?
Lost?
No, but she is good at doing it drunken. So, gotta watch out for her.
Did the bad guy that's in Book of Eli, also in Fifth Element, show up? And then he told Batman that he likes him a lot, Commissioner Gordon. Is that what
I love
happened?
where all this is going.
I'm just gonna keep going until I've lost Silver, and that happened 5 references ago.
You lost me.
Ross, you were keeping up?
Yeah, for the most part, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Good.
Good for you.
Yeah,
It is.
because we're better than you because we're men and we don't touch faces. You pervert.
You weirdos.
You weirdos. We get some face
Like,
groping.
yes, tell Dread out.
We get some natural womanly activities with a lot of face groping. This is not a good scene for her actress to stop on.
No.
A little bit of a tooth sticking out there. Anyway, she's trying to be strong. We're gonna sail back to Numenor. He sniffles, and we're back to the Harfoots, and they're like, "Oh, everything sucks a lot." And the dad's trying to reassure her because the Nazgals burned all their crap down and walked away because she was helping them figure out where the guy went.
Some reason.
The They-Them Brigade. Any reflections on this scene? I don't recall getting much out of this.
Just
No, it was-
there's a moment that made me laugh, and it's just a reiteration of how dumb this culture is written.
Sure.
That they say something like "stay true," like we stay true to each other, and it's like when you abandon
When you leave people behind,
Yeah.
You abandon people left and right. What are you
We
talking
never walk
about?
alone unless you get a hurdy foot, and we are super making you walk alone.
If you roll that ankle, I'm leaving you behind, mister. Like,
Especially
they're
when his
so
hurdy
full
foot
of
was
it.
trying to help people.
yeah, he's just doing the work of the town, of the crew, of the group. You know,
It's like an awful Machiavellian culture.
it's very strange. It's truly bizarre.
Truly bizarre.
they had the whole "you're not leaving without your Sam" thing.
Yeah.
there.
Oh my God. Good call. You're right.
And on top of that, it felt kind of like they were also doing the Council of Elrond, where they're like, "You're going to need somebody with wisdom on this here quest." You know, when the main leader is like, "You guys will get lost if..." No, his wife says it. His wife's like, "You're going to get lost unless you take him with you."
Well, you notice that moment where she says something and he's like upset and he goes, "You're always right." And I'm like, well, she's always right.
Yeah.
Why isn't she in charge? Why are you in charge?
Yeah. Seriously. Yeah.
If she's the smart one, why are we relying on
Well,
you?
it just seemed like that jokey thing you see in movies where it's like, oh, well, my better half is always right. And it's like, is this a relationship thing? Because if she's actually always right, you should step down as the incompetent leader of this group. Or are you just doing that thing? The lady, my wife is just so much better than I am. Well, then why are you in charge?
The lady.
The lady. Well, we'll shift on and stumble our way forward. They go looking for that dude because he deserves a warning. They get some longing looks and stuff.
Well, just to back up real quick, they go off after them, but how are they going to get ahead of the Nazgals?
What
Go
the
ahead.
people that
We're
can
done
like,
with that.
that can like blink in and out of existence? Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
With their Gigantor feet.
yeah.
The road goes up.
From the door where it began.
By the power of song.
I mean,
They'll
maybe
sing a
they're
folksy
implying
Irish song.
that the Nazgals will get lost, and because they don't have a Pathfinder, and they'll be able to catch up to Gandalf because they not Gandalf, excuse me, because they do know.
The Stranger is technically what the show calls him.
Yeah.
The stranger.
Anyway, we get a conversation with Arondir and Bronwyn. It seems like they want to say things to each other, but they don't because Galadriel's there. So there's like awkward tension. And that's mostly what I get from this.
Over there.
Yeah. Like we're going home. And they don't get to talk. But they do find out that Halbrand's alive. And it's like, oh my gosh, Halbrand's alive. Everybody, it's our king or whatever. And she's like, oh, he's my friend, even though our relationship has been awful and there's nothing to indicate they developed anything between them.
Even though I'm an enormous dick to him.
Yes. She was completely awful to him. She even when they met in front of Muriel, they said, we're not friends. Even though he was trying to be friendly with her, she's like, he's not my friend. And then he gets in trouble. She sees him in prison, and she's like, oh, Halbrand, you're always getting into trouble hooking up with the ladies. And it's like, when did this happen?
Oh, you.
What happened between the we're not friends and suddenly we're super friends?
Yeah, they're tight, you know? They've been tight friends for a long time. Years.
I mean,
When-
it could be that, Galadriel is like tight with Halbrand now because she's trying to manipulate things to her advantage.
so she's just the
that's
villain
why,
now?
Yeah.
Yes.
She is the main character and the villain of the piece?
I mean,
Well,
hey,
Halbrand is
we're-
dying now, supposedly.
Yeah, he's got to be. So the conclusion is he's in desperate need of being healed. The only people that can heal him are the elves. So let's travel like miles from here to go to the elves, which would it not put him in more
Perhaps
danger?
Well, not only that, but he is in mortal danger of dying. And they basically have to reverse the trip that Frodo took from Mordor to Rivendell to get to the elves.
It's a little
Yeah,
closer than
easy.
Rivendell. It's just past the Gap of Rohan, but you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Easy.
That's true, yeah.
It's
Done
in
and done.
Eregion.
Yeah, and,
Rivendell's
I mean,
slightly
you
farther
could-
north.
You could argue that what they're going to do is they're going to go down the Anduin to the sea and then get on a boat and head up towards Eregion. But the thing is that's still a huge trek for someone who basically is almost dead.
Yep.
At this point.
Now they're going to take
A little bit
horses.
of travel on Death's Door.
There,
yeah.
there's no reasonable expectation that Halbrand should survive.
Well, and let's remind everybody, this show has no respect for time and distance. So I guarantee you, the next episode, they're going to be where they need to be immediately.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
When this
It's
was
gotta
a
be.
grand
One more
journey
episode.
in Lord of the Rings. Well, they could have the whole episode being walking, giving them the benefit of the doubt. Suddenly they get
Yeah,
really
you-
respectful of distance.
This makes
Anyway.
no sense.
Halbrand walks out and he comes stumbling out and everybody bows, even though they met him yesterday and there's a lot of respect because he's their king, I guess. But
Sure.
everybody bows because he's super awesome.
God, yeah, he is.
Yeah, he is. He's so
He did
hot.
Nothing.
Anyway, they go riding off on horses. And we're back to Durin, Prince Durin, talking to Disa. Having conversations.
Did anybody get kind of a Machiavellian feel from Disa during this conversation?
A
or was
little
that
bit
just
of
bit.
scheming
No, yeah.
to leverage. She's like, your dad's old and he's gonna die. You're still gonna be king anyway, bruh. Maybe we should take him
not
out.
just
Like,
like you're
part of
going to
me
be
thought
king.
Maybe we should cause a rebellion and overthrow him. Like it felt like they were close to
Yeah.
that suggestion. Am I off?
Yeah, but not only that, but Disa says at one point that is like, this is going to be our kingdom.
Oh yeah. It's
It isn't
part
just
of hers.
you will be the next king. This is going to be ours. Like, oh well, okay.
She's got designs of the throne. She wants to be in charge.
Yeah.
Disa's got power hungry.
She's getting greedy.
She's getting greedy. Well, that's the summation of the conversation. They gave her some weird contacts, and she's got crazy eyes.
Yeah. A little bit.
Am I not wrong? She got a bit of crazy eyes with them contacts.
No,
Mhm.
she does. You right.
I'm right. You know I'm right. Well, one of the greatest moments in cinema history. Adar is walking around with them orcs, and they're like, "Hey, you're pretty awesome. Look what you did, Adar."
Mhm.
And he goes and sits down, and they're like, "Yeah, you're the king of the Southlands." He's like, "Wow, no, not the Southlands." He's like, "What should we call it?" And in the strangest way to indicate to the audience, I guess we were supposed to have our minds blown. The Southlands, they show the word Southlands, and then you have the words burn away, and it says Mordor.
Mordor.
What do you think about this cinema trick to try and tell you what's going on here? About the renaming of it.
Well, felt like I was watching either a Michael Bay movie or like a Independence Day. It was great, really, really on the nose, you know. And I need that because I'm dumb.
It felt sitcom-y to me.
A little
Yeah,
bit.
just a
Tone
bit.
changed quite a bit with that. It was so strange. What's the name of that director that did Independence Day?
Bruckheimer?
Emmerich,
No.
Roland Emmerich.
Roland Emmerich.
It literally felt like one of those movies. Like that's what he does in all the movies. Like Godzilla does that, Independence Day, the Day After Tomorrow, or whatever. Like every movie he does, they do that. Like
Well, let's at
tell you
least
where you're at.
talk about this abstractly. This is a storytelling element to indicate to the audience that the location we were at is no longer what it was, and the only reason why this works is because there's already established knowledge within the audience that they know what Mordor is. So literally,
Right.
the showrunners are going, we're going to write the location and then erase it and write a new one, and we're telling you that this is no longer the Southlands. This is the notorious land of evil called Mordor. And a storytelling element that works only... It's almost like a fourth wall breaking where they could have somebody walk into the
this is
screen,
definitely a fourth
turn
wall
and
break.
look at you and say, it's Mordor now, wink, and then walk away. Because that's what
Well,
the
look
show
at
is
it.
telling us. It's literally writing on the front of the screen, Mordor, for the audience. It has nothing to do with the storytelling in the characters and anything. It's a deliberate effort for the showrunners to talk to you, the viewer, to tell you where the location is now.
Can I tell you what this reminds me of?
Huh.
But it would have been better. The example I'm about to give you is what they should have done here.
Okay.
So, do you remember in that in the second Star Trek movie made by the J.J. Abrams?
Yes.
Mhm.
Remember that moment where Blendy Dick Cabbage Patch is captured by Starfleet, and they're asking him who he is?
Uh-huh.
And he
Uh-huh.
literally looks past camera like he's looking at them and goes, "My name is Khan." And it goes,
Yeah.
and it's like that. And they
He
should
was-
have literally looked at him and gone, "You don't look South Indian. I'm going to be honest. Like you don't look. You're from the subcontinent."
Well, and he's not talking to Kirk. He's talking to the
No.
audience. Yeah.
Yes, but see, in weirdly enough, in this context, where somebody asks him like, "Oh, you're now the king of the Southlands, ain't you?" and he goes, "No, we're not going to call it that anymore. They just have him go, we're going to call it Mordor." And even though it still would have been hacky, at least it would have looked better than a Roland Emmerich font scrub. Like, what the hell was that?
Well, and I imagine it could have even done more elegantly. Like he's like, you're now the king of the Southlands. He's like, the Southlands, no, this is now the land we've dreamt of. It's the land of Mordor.
Yeah.
And then that's it. He
Yeah.
doesn't need to turn
Yep.
and look at the screen. You don't need to have an
No.
emotional reaction. But instead, this is even worse than him turning and looking at the screen and saying, this is Mordor. It's literally text across the screen, Mordor. I mean, it's as bad as somebody who's not even on the show. Like, somehow Peter Jackson walks into the frame, looks at you and winks and goes,
Yeah.
Mordor, and then walks away.
That's the Alfred Hitchcock thing.
Bloody
Yes.
Mordor, isn't it?
Bloody Mordor, isn't it?
I'm getting this. I'm getting a feeling here that they're setting up Adar to have a tragic end.
Well, I could tell you he's in season 2.
Right.
I know it's going to happen.
The thing is that this is supposed to be Mordor, and setting apart the lore. We know that Mordor was Sauron's stronghold. And
Well,
we
the
got, and I
audience
got the
knows, yeah.
feeling, yeah, I got the feeling through this that they're trying to set up Adar to be a sympathetic figure. That the reason he was doing all this stuff was so that he could create a homeland for the orcs.
Well, and it takes
And
away the sort of malicious power and evil from Sauron if he had nothing to do with Mordor's creation.
right now, if that's what they did, was they're like, Mordor was not created by Sauron; it was created by Adar to be the homeland for the orcs. Well, Sauron makes it his stronghold, so that we already have heard from Adar. They said, "Are you Sauron?" And he's like, "No, I'm not Sauron." And so we already know that he's not. And we know that Adar is sympathetic to the orcs. He sees them as his children. He's one of the first orcs. Sauron is going to have to depose him, or this was all done under Sauron's command, and Adar has been leading us by the nose the whole time.
Mhm.
That this really isn't him being sympathetic to the orcs and trying to create a homeland for them and trying to create a place for the orcs. It's actually he was trying to create Mordor for Sauron the entire time.
That's not what the show's
I
been
don't
trying to tell
know
us.
exactly. What the show has been trying to tell us is that basically Adar's going to come to a terrible, tragic end. That somehow Sauron is going to have to kill him and take over Mordor from him.
Well, he could supplant him.
Yeah, but he still has to kill him or get rid of him somehow, because
Well, not necessarily.
at least at
he
this
could
point,
basically cow him and force him to work for him.
that's true. But at least at this point, I don't get the feeling that he's in league with Sauron.
Well,
That
he
he actually doesn't
deliberately
like
is
Sauron
not.
and what Sauron, yeah. And
He
so,
doesn't like him.
Unless that's just a big misdirect, which would be hilarious.
but at the same time, I don't feel any sympathy towards Adar. He's not a sympathetic character to me. I don't care about him. I don't care about the orcs.
They want you to be sympathetic to the orcs and their plight.
Yeah.
So it's just not successful with you, but the show thinks it's supposed to be. I'm just commenting on the weird aspect of, look, the only reason why this text change works if you know what Mordor is. So that literally
Right.
the storytelling element of this show, a storytelling element, only works if they know that the audience knows elements of this story before seeing it.
Right.
So it's a weird, I've never seen this before. There's a weird assumption that you've seen other content or are aware of other content related to Lord of the Rings so that the word Mordor means something to you.
Conveys meaning to you.
Because as far as the audience, if you've never seen anything, you're just cold going into the show, you don't know what Mordor is. You're going to sit there like, why did the name change? I don't understand.
Yeah,
So
why
the
should I
story
care?
element requires that you have seen other content for this to have meaning.
Sort of like that terrible Star Trek Into Darkness moment.
Yeah. Yeah. For it literally, the moment in Star Trek Into Darkness, if you don't know who Khan is, that meaning that moment where he looks to the camera and says Khan means nothing to the audience. So the show is literally requiring you for that moment to pay off to have foreknowledge about the story.
Mhm.
It is such an odd moment. But yeah, fire and flames and credits. Final thoughts on the episode, Jason?
There were a couple of shining moments in the episode, but by and large, again, super huge plot holes, mostly boring. I couldn't wait for it to get away from the Harfoots.
Oh,
And that was kind of my thing there.
Ross.
shockingly, pretty good character moments. At least a couple times.
Yeah,
was happy and
I
impressed
think this
by
is one
that.
of the better episodes, despite complaints.
Yep. But also still with half-baked, underdeveloped, or just kind of overall misses as far as like tone or like, I mean, the whole thing with the Queen Muriel and her eyes is just so odd and not sold very well. But overall, it was fine, and in some senses one of the better episodes of the season.
Silver?
Yeah, it definitely was a better episode. Much more tolerable. I liked the stuff with Durin and his dad. I don't mind Durin as a character. I think the
I
actor
like
plays him
Durin.
well. He definitely
Yeah.
feels like a dwarf.
Yeah.
I like Durin.
I think Adar is played
the
interestingly.
Yeah, he is too. What was it? The one thing that I absolutely did not like about this episode was like, why did what's her name, Nori, Harfoot Girl, go like, I don't know where he is. You don't know who these people are.
Yeah.
They look very sinister, and you're like, oh, he went that way.
You're not wrong.
That was
Perhaps
very dumb to me.
Well, and I was going to ask, was she trying to misdirect them, or was she trying to actually direct them?
I
She
don't
actually
know.
told them which way he went.
Oh,
I don't know
gosh.
in relation
God,
to where
Nori's
they were.
dumb as
I can't
hell.
tell if it was the right location. I couldn't tell from that position.
The Harfeeder mistake.
Yeah, the Harfeet. Apparently they exist because you had to have wizards and hobbits in the show, even though they wouldn't really be a
Where's-
thing in the show.
Where's the hobbits?
Where's the
hobbits
hobbit?
at?
Well, this is the penultimate episode. You're gonna have to stick around and look in next week for episode 8 when we finally finish this show. And get hyped for the conclusion of Rings of Power, everybody. Get hyped for that.
Yeah.
Thanks for anybody joining us for this episode. Get excited. What's that, Jason?
I am hyped because this is the last episode of the season and there won't be any more after it.
Get hyped, Silver. Get hyped.
The pain is almost over.
Get hyped. Anyway, thanks for joining us for this episode. See you for episode 8.
If you like the show, follow Rhett, Jason, Ross, and Silver, the world's most lethally stupid internet personalities, on Twitter at DGPodcast or on Instagram at DistractedGamers. If you liked or hated what you heard here today, you can email them at thedistractedgamers@gmail.com and share your feelings. Not that Jason would care, since he hasn't any, of course.
Oh my God, it's so juicy.